Hello everybody and welcome back to another edition of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt the GameBoyle, take you through the highs and lows of the GameBoyle library, one card at a time. Though this week, technically, we'll be doubling up with Godzilla. As pop cultural icons go, they don't really get much bigger than Godzilla. The king of monsters is undoubtedly a household name even beyond movie lovers, holding a place in our modern-day pantheon of mythical creatures alongside the likes of literary monsters like Dracula and the Wolfman, as well as, of course, his Western movie equivalent in King Kong. Like the eighth wonder of the world, part of Godzilla's resonance with the zeitgeist can be traced back to the original black and white movie that started it all. A nuclear holocaust incarnate, a 1954 Godzilla was a metaphor to embody the horrors of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and is still an incredible movie to watch to this day. Naturally, the film resonated with the Japanese cinema audience who had lived through the horrors that inevitably brought the Second World War to a close. The film was heavily edited though for its American release for that very reason, redubbing and removing almost everything that ever hinted at the film's deeper morality and watering it down to be just another monster movie. While Godzilla would inspire a whole genre of movies in Japan and a fair share of imitators the world over, the American alterations to the original Godzilla is just the first instance of many of Godzilla being edited or reimagined to appeal to a Western audience. And here we are, almost 70 years later, still not getting it right. Would you believe me though, Game Boys and Girls, if I told you that Godzilla for the Nintendo Game Boy is also a victim of these unsavoury editing practices? Yes, even that Godzilla, the quaint little puzzle game in which you battle through 64 stages to save your son Manila, even that game wasn't safe from the need to make Godzilla more epic for Western audiences. I've honestly picked up Godzilla to review on this channel about 5 times. Each time I've plugged it into the system, cleared a few levels and thought, nah. Why, you ask? Well, if I'm being totally honest, I've been at a loss as to what to say about the game other than, it's fine. The levels themselves are small, side-scrolling stages in which your goal is to simply stay alive long enough to break all the boulders in the stage and reveal the various exits. Yes, I did say exits, as most levels of the game offer multiple routes around the map to save Manila, though a lot of them will see you backtracking if you're not keeping up on the game's in-game map, which can be accessed by pressing select at any time during gameplay. Yes, the sprites are cute chibi versions of all your favourite kaiju like Mechagodzilla, Rodan and Hydra. There's even an adorable King Ghidorah that comes in like Baron Von Blubber from Bubble Bobble to kill you if you're taking too long on a stage. It should have been the mix of those adorable chibi sprites in-game versus their title card, movie-accurate representations that tipped me off that there was something wrong with Godzilla, but it wasn't until I accidentally booted up a bootleg Japanese copy of the game on a multicart, hoping, nay, praying, it was the Japanese-only title Kaiju or Godzilla, coming next week, to realise, holy crap, this Godzilla game is actually a hidden gem. For you see, while we in the West got a Godzilla game with enough label variations to make a collector sweat, the Japanese version of the game isn't about saving Manila at all, but Bajiran, Godzilla's girlfriend. For you see, Godzilla for the Game Boy isn't supposed to be about this Godzilla at all, but this one. Gojira-Kun Kaiju Dai Kesesin to Murder the Game's Japanese title is actually the spiritual successor to an MSX game called Gojira-Kun that came out in 1985. To complicate things even further, the art style for this MSX title is based on a series of educational animes and cute kaiju merchandise released around the same time called Gojira-Rando. While the Game Boy outing is clearly drawing on the same well for its art style, the Game Boy Gojira-Kun is clearly a child of the early 90s, sporting a jean jacket and roll-up sleeves that are only a pomp away from being a bad boy. What's more, the Game Boy entry actually introduces other members of Godzilla's family and friends who provide helpful hints to navigate the maze to find Bajiran. Okay, so the game has a slightly different art style and a story I can't read. Great work, Matt. This is clearly a hidden gem. But stick with me, I promise, I'm getting to the good stuff. My main complaint about the Western release of Godzilla was often the game felt incredibly slow. Yes, Godzilla is a lumbering monster, but when compared to similar puzzle games on the Game Boy like Rodland, or hell, even the crazy Castle series, Godzilla moves at a crawl. This isn't an issue in the Japanese release, where Gojira-Kun can whip around a stage in a couple of seconds, allowing you to outpace your adversaries. Speaking of which, while the kaiju can be dispatched with a couple of kisses of Godzilla's mighty fist, Hedorah is invincible in the Western version, with your fist only knocking her back. Due to a lot of the levels being uncomfortably tight, this generally means you need to walk over Hedorah and take intentional damage multiple times while clearing a stage. This isn't an issue in the Japanese version of the game. The power-ups of the Western game are all very self-explanatory too: a timer to stop enemies, a lightning bolt to clear the screen, and a heart to heal Godzilla. Notice anything missing? Yes friends, atomic breath. Don't worry though, the Japanese version's got you covered. While there's some more variety in the Japanese levels for sure, with some levels containing multiple versions of the same monster, it's these improvements of speed and slight tweaks to Hedorah's behaviour that take Godzilla from being a very average game to a really enjoyable one. The Japanese version of the game also contains a multiplayer mode, which, if you have a friend lucky enough with a second Japanese copy of this game to play it with, will see you facing off against each other, trying to complete the levels at the fastest time possible. And while I'm sure to some of you that sounds like a barrel of fun, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be worth your time. When you factor in a password system to allow for pick up and play gaming, a non-offensive soundtrack, and a pretty fair difficulty ramp, you have the makings of a fun puzzle game. Sure, it's still not perfect. The maze-like layout of the game can lead you to repeating some levels you'd preferred not to, as well as the ability to accidentally fail a level right from the off, forcing you to lose a life and reset. But let's be honest, that's kind of par for the course with 90s puzzle games. If you're able to pick up a Japanese copy of the game, I say dive into Gojira-Kun and have at it. It's a fun little puzzle game that will keep you entertained for a commute or two. While the Western version is obviously more readily available, I'd say you should give that a miss unless you're really curious. It's an okay game for sure, but it's nothing to write home about. With a plethora of better puzzle games on the system, I'd honestly advise you to play something else. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry it's slightly late. If you've enjoyed this, why not check out some other videos, share it with people you think may be interested, and of course, click that subscribe and bell button if you haven't already. I will be back next week with Kaiju or Godzilla, but until then, Game Boys and Girls, be sure to game on.